Some of you are not going to like this episode. Some of you are going to be offended by this episode. Some of you are going to feel invalidated. You're going to be mad at me. Some of you might unsubscribe from me. But I'm willing to take that risk because my goal with this podcast is not to make you feel better. It's to help you. And sometimes to help somebody, you got to tell them what they don't want to hear. And if I was going through this at this time in my life, this is what I would have needed to hear. And I'll be honest, when I was younger, I probably wouldn't have been able to hear this either. But it's that important. I really think this episode is that important that I need you as best you can to be as open-minded as you possibly can. And again, some of you, this may not apply to. Some of you might already know this, might understand this might not bother you. But for those of you who it rubs the wrong way, just keep in mind that it's supposed to rub you the wrong way. And that's time to reflect inwardly and see if there's anything that can be gained from this episode. Nothing that I say is meant to offend or insult. It is just to be honest and to help you make progress with your social anxiety and with your confidence. Okay, there's three main things that I want to bring up today. The first two are going to be clumped together, and the last thing is probably going to be the more offensive thing, so stick around for that one. The first two things are what we call primary and secondary gains. Primary and secondary gains. They use this terminology a lot in the medical world, okay? But this can be applied to the psychological world too. And all primary and secondary gains are gains, things that we obtain from having a problem, okay? And the difference between primary and primary is a gain you receive that is an immediate emotional gain. A secondary gain is something you get from someone else or from the outside world. So how does this apply to social anxiety? Well, a primary gain, in this case, is a feeling that you get from the social anxiety that benefits you. Now, I know that's going to feel maybe a little offensive because you're going to think, well, what benefits me about having social anxiety? Well, on paper, not much. But when we over-identify with the social anxiety, we get quite a bit of benefit from the social anxiety. Because when we tell ourselves that we have social anxiety and we say it in a way that indicates that, well, this means I'm limited and there's certain things I just can't do. Well, this means that we're going to live our life in a way to make sure that we live in a safe life, that we prevent ourselves from doing things that are challenging. And so a primary gain in this example would be, well, let's say someone invites you to a party and all of a sudden you get a lot of anxiety and you're thinking to yourself, well, I can't do that. I can't, that's too overwhelming for me. I'm going to turn that down. What do you get from turning it down? You get relief. Your social anxiety perpetuates this safe life that you built, and everything that's in your life that you think is keeping your life happy and content and safe. These are all the things that are actually hurting you. But you can't see that when you're anxious because you see it as a benefit. And it's not necessarily conscious. It's not like you're necessarily saying to yourself, well, I don't want to challenge myself. I know that on paper you're saying to yourself, I want to get better. Sometimes we say we want to get better, but we don't really understand what that means. Getting better does not mean feeling better. Getting better often means doing difficult things. Feeling better is easy. We can do a lot of things that make us feel better. We can drink. That'll make us feel better, but that doesn't mean it is better. So a lot of times when we have social anxiety, we will do things that in the long run only damage our ability to make progress with our confidence and our social anxiety. And we use these things as coping strategies. We think that the coping strategies of avoidance, of not doing difficult things, we think that this helps us. And so it provides us something good in the short term. And this can become a habit. Everything that someone offers you that could be a challenge, when you act in the way that your social anxiety wants you to act, you get relief. You don't have to worry about it anymore because, hey, I could stay home and play video games today. I could just be by myself today. Wait till the loneliness gets me later, but I'll deal with that later. So that is a primary gain. And there's different ways that this can happen, but that is an example of a primary gain. A secondary gain is something that you gain from someone else or from the external world, from having a problem, in this case, social anxiety. So what would a secondary gain look like? Let's say you're working for a boss who knows that you have social anxiety. Either you've told them or they can tell that you get really nervous. Well, a secondary gain here is he might stop asking you to do presentations. That's a benefit to you. Not in the long run, because obviously you want to progress your career, but in the short term, this makes it easier. He knows, I've told him, I don't have to worry about it anymore. It makes my life easy. That's a secondary gain. You get something. Maybe you get empathy and sympathy from your friends, and that can feel good. I'm not saying that's a bad thing to get empathy from your friends. Obviously, that's a good thing. But sometimes it can become addictive. We like the feeling of feeling like we have a problem so that people can make us feel better. So we feel like people understand us. Of course, we all want to be understood, but sometimes we can get addicted to wanting to feel understood and wanting to feel validated. We have to realize that this is getting in the way of our long-term goal. Our long-term goal is to challenge ourselves at every possible opportunity. But every day, you're going to battle with these subconscious, sometimes they can be conscious, desires to make your life easier, to make the day go by a little smoother. We have to resist the desire to fall into these traps because they are traps. They are not helping you. Anytime you do something that makes your anxiety go away immediately, that's dangerous. That's what we're trying to avoid. We don't want to do that. It's easier said than done, but that is not helping you in the long run. So those are the first two things. The third thing, which I think is probably harder to appreciate and admit to, is that when you have social anxiety for a very long time, you can become very, very resentful of other people. You become very resentful of the world. You become bitter. You become jaded. You start to feel like there's no hope, there's no point. You start to blame other people. Well, people were so mean to me. People were abusive to me. People bullied me. These things might be true. I'm not even arguing with that. It's very well that can be true, but the problem is that when we become convinced that our problem was the cause of other people, now we're angry. Now we want justice. Now we feel like life's not fair. Now we feel like, what's the point? I'm not in control anymore. I've been so beaten down and been treated so unfairly. You know what? I don't even like people anymore. And I used to do this. I'm telling you this because I used to do this. I went through a phase in my life where I convinced myself, you know what? I don't like people. I don't need people. Who needs people? I'm a lone wolf, don't you know? I can get through life all by myself. I'm a cool guy. I don't need other people. This is what can happen when you have social anxiety for long enough, because your mind can't cope with the fact that you're so lonely. Or maybe your mind can't cope with the shame and the embarrassment that you have all these difficult conversations or these difficult moments in your life, and that maybe you have no friends, you haven't had a dating history. So it's very easy. I'm going to start blaming women because I haven't had a date. I'm going to start blaming other people because I don't have any friends. Everybody's so mean to me. And there may be some truth to that. And I'm not denying that there are some people who have probably mistreated you. But you get in this mindset, now you have no motivation to change because you feel like other people should change for you. And that's not possible. We can't expect that from other people. So we have to be really honest with ourselves when we start to fall down this trap, this resentment, this bitterness. And, I made a TikTok recently about the damage that this passive aggressiveness, this resentment can do to us. And sometimes we don't even realize we're doing it. And a lot of times this can be the reason why we can't make connections. We're wondering, well, why don't people like us? A lot of times the reason people may not like you is because you've held on to this resentment for so long and you've been so bad at speaking up for yourself and being assertive and speaking and asking for what you want, that you become extremely passive aggressive in conversations. You don't even realize it. You're making snide remarks. You're muttering under your breath. Or maybe it's not even in the moment. Maybe you're talking shit to other people about other people. You start talking bad about other people because you've been so pent up with this anger And maybe some people in your life don't even know that they've done anything that's bothered you, but you're too afraid to say anything. So you just get mad at them because they keep doing something that's bothering you, but you've never told them that it's bothering you. And so you get mad at them, and now you're treating them differently. You're treating them with distance. You're being cold to them. And then you're wondering why they don't want to stick around. This happens with social anxiety because, after a while, it's hard to keep up a happy face. It's hard to keep up positivity. That's all understandable. But you are guaranteeing a life of loneliness if you go down this road, if you do not check yourself, if you do not realize, you know what? I'm angry, and yes, other people have mistreated me, but at the end of the day, it's my responsibility. I'm angry because I haven't spoken up for myself. I'm angry because I haven't challenged myself to do the things that I want to do. And that doesn't mean you sit there and you beat yourself up. We've talked about that. We're not beating ourselves up. We're taking accountability. We're taking responsibility for the decisions we've made in our life, regardless of how other people have treated us. Because the only pathway forward, the only way any progress gets made is if you choose to make progress, if you take responsibility for what you've done in your life. So I realize that this episode may have been hard for some of you to hear, but I say this with care. I say this because I know this place. I've been there. I know where you get to a point where you're just like, screw the world. I can't stand people. Who needs them? You need them. Most people need people. I don't care how independent you think you are. I don't care that you think you're the lone wolf. Most people need people. Most people can't go their whole life without a social circle. So don't give up. Notice when you're doing this. Notice when you're getting jaded and you're pushing away. Or as I mentioned earlier, with these primary and secondary gains, these benefits you're getting from the social anxiety, these things are getting in the way of progress. And we want progress. So if we want progress, we got to be honest with ourselves and we got to start challenging ourselves to do things that we're uncomfortable with. Thanks again for tuning in, and I'll see you soon.